Hey there, everyone. This is Gary McCormick with AffordableCraftsmen.net. I'm bringing a little free training to you today about a very popular subject, a very popular job type that we do quite a bit at Affordable Craftsmen, and that really probably 70, 80, 90% of investors do if they want to increase the value of their flip houses and the properties they're eventually going to sell once they're ready to sell them and cash out, if you will. And that is to remove load-bearing walls, predominantly between the kitchen and the dining room and the sitting area, to create an open flow plan where you have a 600 to 1,000 square foot open space. This really makes houses attractive. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s makes them attractive, makes them sell well. If you were to pay retail for this kind of job, usually retail is about double or triple what we charge. We are a wholesale general contractor, a builder, state licensed builder. We do probably 30 beam jobs, and a beam job could be as many as 5 walls or beams coming out and putting in. Could be just one. We probably do somewhere around 25 or 30 a year, probably 2, maybe even 3 a month some months. And we've done that for well over 20 years, almost 30. Some years in the beginning less. So I don't know, maybe we've done 500 to 1,000, I would imagine, probably in the last 30 years. Same as flipping houses. We've flipped in excess of 1,000 houses, and we've built quite a few new ones. And the flipped houses, a lot of them had walls taken out, structural walls. So I wanted to go through the process of doing this so that you'd understand why you want to get an engineer involved, a structural engineer, 100%. Whether you pull a permit or don't pull a permit, by the way, you want the engineer involved, or you'll probably have problems selling the house, particularly in a buyer's market. So maybe 80% of the time, no problem, but 10 or 20% if you're in a buyer's market. And they can be very picky then all of a sudden, and they find out you don't have a permit. But if you have an engineer's letter, you're good. So if you want a permit, you got to have an engineer's letter, because the inspectors at the various counties and cities and municipalities, they're not engineers. So when they come in to inspect, they go, Gary, that being me, we love this beam. My God, this beam looks great. It's like a 30 or 40 foot, holy mother, it's like a Volkswagen. We love it. But Gary, how do we know it's right? To which I pull out my engineer's drawing and letters and such that sizes the beam. Talks about the load, why it's a triple 24-inch laminated veneer lumber LVL beam, 32 foot long. That there are 4 2x6s at each end to support the weight. There's a post in the middle made of 3 or 4 2x6s. How are they nailed and glued together? There's blocking above and below. There's blocking down below to the footings. If there weren't existing footings, we added footings. What size were those footings? All of this is all specified by the engineer. So if you take out a wall in a house as an investor, or if you do it because your family wants a bigger room and it'll sell better later, well, people may actually call the county and ask if you have a permit. The reason is because the appraiser, who is part of the transaction to sell your house or refinance your house, they're going to go into what's called a repository, primarily RedLink, and they're going to go in RedLink and they're going to pull up the previous appraisal on your address. And then they're going to use that to pull comps, and they're going to ask you if anything's been changed. And if you say nothing's been changed, and they pull a bunch of comps, they're going to roll out into the field, and they're going to come take pictures of your existing house. And while they're out, they're going to take pictures of the comps, and then they're going to go back to their office and they're going to put the appraisal together, and they're going to be done in about 3 or 4 hours total. To which they made $300 or $500, something like that, or some cut of, some portion. However, if they show up at your house to take pictures and they realize that your basement is not unfinished and it's now finished, if they see that you have a front or back porch that was added, if they see that you added a garage, if they see that you took out a wall and opened 3 or 4 rooms up that used to be closed to each other, then that appraiser is going to be very unhappy because they needed to have known that before they came. And so now they have to get different comps and make a second trip into the field. Also, they're going to very likely tell the lender, because the appraiser works for the lender. They're there to make sure that your home is worth what everybody says it is, because it's an asset to secure the bank in case you don't pay your mortgage. And if they see that there's all kinds of weird stuff going on, they're going to tell the bank, because the bank doesn't want there to be weird stuff. The bank wants everything to be peanut butter and jelly, normal, and they want to know that they can sell that house if you don't pay the mortgage. Well, if the appraiser lets the lender know, or lets the buyer's agent, if they let the buyer's agent know whom they're working for, that's who's hiring them to come out and do the appraisal and do the home inspection and such, then you're going to have all these questions, and many of them are going to go back to calling the county or the city that you're in, the municipality, to see about a permit. If you do not have a permit, but you have a letter from an engineer and it was done by a licensed contractor with insurance, you're just as good. Nobody cares. Not 99% of the time. Very, very small percentage, 1 in 100. You could have someone say, I don't want to buy the house, or I want proof, or be difficult. But if you have an engineer's letter sizing the beam, and I'm the guy that installs it, and I have a state license as a builder or a GC, and I have insurance, that's is good or better than pulling the permit. Because at the end of the day, the buyer of that property wants to know that you just did it right. They don't want it to fall in or to be a big problem for them and cost them a ton of money. Oh, look, a $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 surprise. Oh, no. They want to make sure it was done right, and they're not going to have any surprise cost later, right? So, you should always get a structural engineer. And I get the structural engineer out before I go. Why? Because that investor or that homeowner may get 2, 3, 5, 10, God knows how many bids. If they have the engineer's letter, they can forward that engineer's letter to me and 5 other people. And then all 5 of us can bid based on what the engineer drew and spelled out as the actual work process. And you'll still have variation and ding-dong contractors that can't deal with the engineer stuff. Believe me, it'll be a little bit of a mess. But if you have people that are, 10, 20, 30 years experience and high level and licensed and stuff, then we're all going to know what's going on. We're going to bid apples to apples, oranges to oranges. So now you get these bids. In our case, we're about 98 to 99% to get these bids on this project. To take out a wall and put in a beam, to load where there's a support load, to remove it and put in columns and posts and things, to do structural repairs. We get very close to 100% of those deals because we're usually a half or a third what everybody else is charging. This is because when you do these kind of things once or twice a year or every 5 years, you don't really know exactly how many men and what equipment it takes to safely do this kind of thing. But when you do these beams and these posts and these structural repairs and jack up houses every week, every month, and you've done it for 30 years, then you can be very, very, very close on the estimate and know what your costs are going to be and how many men you're going to need and all that kind of stuff. And so by default, if their bid is 20 or 30 grand, my bid's probably 10. Because I can get it that low, because I know exactly what it costs, because I've done hundreds, if not thousands. So this is where we can benefit you at Affordable Craftsman. But even if you don't use me or like me, or you're not in North Atlanta, maybe you're in some other city, you're watching this in Maryland, California, who knows where, New York State, you need to get a structural engineer. Now, in Atlanta, the going rate for a structural engineer is about $600 to $1,500. My structural engineers are $250 to come for the site visit, and then they're $100 per beam. So, a lot of jobs have 2 or 3 beams. It's not just one. So that's anywhere from $350 to $550. That's way better than $600 to $1,500 or more. And many of the engineers take a week to come out, and they take weeks to get you the stuff back. My guys are usually out within a day or two or three, and they get you the stuff the next day. All that to say, this is a good reason for finding a contractor that does structural repairs that's got a reputation for being affordable, because they're going to have a structural engineer that's quick and professional and affordable that they can refer you to. Now, that structural engineer is going to charge you, and when you pay them, they're going to give you that report, and you can use that report to get as many bids as you'd like. You don't have to just use that with me. But you're crazy to not use it with me, because I get 99% of the jobs because I'm the lowest. So you do probably want to make sure I get a copy of your report, I guess, right? Okay. So part of this is that you have to do temporary supports. We put up temporary walls and columns and things to support the load. Then we remove the wall in question and put the beam in place. And when everything's all fastened and carrying the load, then we remove the temporary walls and take them out, and you have the finished product. But again, there's quite a bit to this. I'm a little bit minimizing it to make it fit in a 10 or 15 minute video, because there's a lot of danger. This is like many things that I make videos on. There's a lot of danger out there in construction for people that don't speak good English, that are trying to get some kind of super deal and get things done cheap. You can cut corners and do certain things, but I really want to warn you and let you know the process and what's ahead. Again, we're typically going to be a half or a third of everybody else, so you should call us. Let us help you with this. Let us give you concierge treatment and make it easy. Once in a blue moon, you find out that your wall isn't actually a structural wall. It's a cosmetic wall. And if it's just a cosmetic wall and it's not structural, well then you can just pull it down because there's no load on it. And that's pretty cool. You did have to pay the $250 for the engineer to come out and look and be sure. But you didn't have to pay $100 per beam because you don't need any beam. Cool. And we still get a lot of those jobs. Why? Well, because the client can pull down the wall, but there's electrical and plumbing and HVAC in the wall. They can't move that. All those switches and receptacles need to be relocated. The plumbing or the HVAC need to be relocated and vents relocated. Drywall and trim need to be patched and put back and done in an orderly fashion. So even if you have no load-bearing wall, well, instead of $5 or $10 grand, it may be that it's just $2 grand. But you do need some stuff hauled away. You do need some mechanicals put back and moved and such so that it works properly for you. So you probably still have some work for us. We'd love to come give you a bid, but it's nice to find out that you don't have to worry about everything falling in on you. You don't need a temp wall. You don't need a hard hat. You don't need all that stuff. And I think you get a lot out of this. So let me know. Reach out to me. I say this at the end of every video. There'll be phone numbers and emails at the end on the last slide. We're not trying to put you in some kind of marketing funnel to text and email you into oblivion. We just want to get a call or an email. Send us what you're looking at. Send us your paperwork. Send us a bid. Send us what you're trying to accomplish. Just communicate whatever you can with us about your thing, and we will get back with you and often can give advice for free. And then if you do need to hire us for something to be done for turnkey or to hire us, then we're glad to go through that process with you. We're super affordable. We do a great job. But if you don't need to hire us, all you need is some wisdom, some counsel. Do this, don't do this, do that. We're glad to advise you in that way very quickly and easily. But if you won't make the 5 or 10 minutes to call or email us, if you won't reach out in the description of the video on YouTube, if you won't figure out a way to reach us, it's not like we have a crystal ball. I can't find you and help you. You have to reach out to me. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. It helped you to conceptually understand what goes on with the beam and why it's kind of a mess and how to handle it properly. And then anything you need from me, just reach out, and I'm glad to jump in and help you in person. All right, well, we'll see you in another video coming up or at one of our events or somewhere hopefully soon, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for being with us.